Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Monday. My name is Shelly Fung from Access Employment. I'm here with the wonderful, amazing Bhavini. She is here today to share her leadership hacks to get us all on the right track. But before I pass it over to her, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our technology and logistics. So, just a reminder to everyone that you are on listen only mode. So, if you're trying to talk or scream at the computer or have a conversation with us, unfortunately, it is listen only mode. We will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. So, feel free to write down any questions you have. You can at any point type them into the questions and answers tab. And at some point at the end of the presentation, we will answer them. So feel free to put your questions there. For best results, please use a laptop or desktop computer. Those would be for the best results using Chrome. And lastly, we do love to get your feedback. So if you have any feedback, please share that with us. There will be a survey going out at the end of the presentation as well. So, just a little bit about Access Employment. Our mission here is to assist job seekers from diverse backgrounds, many like yourselves, to integrate into the Canadian job market. So, just last year, we served over 34,000 job seekers. It really helps that we have over 2,200 employer connections. We have 30 tailored programs. So, whatever sector you're in, you can check us out if you need support with your job search. We have 7 locations all across the Greater Toronto area. And we also have the online services, which is really near and dear to my heart and is what is bringing you this wonderful webinar. So with that said, I'm going to pass it right over to Bhavini, and she's going to tell us all about those wonderful leadership hacks. Over to you, Bhavini.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Should be on your screen a PowerPoint, which is what we're going to discuss today, beginning with the end in mind and becoming a person of influence. My name is Bhavini Patel, and I'm the founder of Be a Leader, and we specialize in small business consulting, leadership development and training, and accountability coaching. And I'll bring up my contact details at the end as well, so you'll have that again. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And what I wanted to share with you today, and thank you to Access to have me speak with you today, wanted to just share a couple of little leadership tricks that I used along my journey as an operations leader. So just to give you a, whoops, there we go. Excuse us if we have any technology glitches this morning. So these concepts for me personally helped me to build up the markets that I was in charge of. And I was an operations leader in Eastern Canada, and I was responsible to grow these markets sort of from 0 to 100. And I found that planning and beginning with the end in mind and what my goal was and working backwards was really helpful to me. I also use this concept to maintain my continuing education goals. So I'm an advocate of continuing education, taking courses, reading, upgrading skill set. And this, again, these concepts help me to keep focused. And also creating Be a Leader, which is near and dear to my heart, offering leadership training to newcomers to Canada and women groups that are new to Canada. Myself and my family moved to Canada back in the 80s, and so we understand the journey of newcomers and what that takes. And lastly, on a health note, these concepts also help me keep focus with becoming a BaliX instructor and a certified group fitness instructor. And BaliX is a Bollywood workout. And so keeping these concepts in mind, it helped me to focus a lot on what I wanted to plan. So what does it mean to begin with the end in mind? Some of you may have heard of Stephen Covey, And he's an author that writes or has written 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You can see that here on the screen. So habit number 2 is one that I, as a leader, lived by all the time. So it means to begin with the end in mind, means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, and the steps that you take are always on the right direction. So I'll just give you a moment just to read that and to process that. So when you begin with the end in mind and have goals, or you have outcomes that you're looking toward to achieve, part of that process is the plan, or what we call plotting the course. So one of the things that I'd like you to do is just take a moment and write down a professional goal or an outcome that you're looking to achieve. So just on a piece of paper, or if you're using a computer, if that's preferred for you. And then what I'd like you to do is, just for a quick moment, I'd like you to just close your eyes. And I'd like you to visualize what success and reaching this goal really looks like. What does that achievement look like? And then I'd like you to think about what positive emotions are associated to reaching this goal. How does it make you feel? So I'd like you to open your eyes now. And on your piece of paper or computer or whatever you may be using, I'd like you to write down these thoughts and emotions that just came into your mind when you had your eyes closed. What were those emotions that you associated with success and achievement and reaching this outcome and this goal? And what did that look like for you? And then we're going to just work through a bit of a framework of how you're going to get to that goal. Again, with the end in mind, you're going to work backwards to achieve that. So these might have been some of the things that came up in your mind, or the goals that you were setting. So to increase influence, whether it's yourself or through other people, you need to be able to navigate the plan. So John Maxwell, so I am a certified licensed trainer for John Maxwell content, and some of you may be familiar with his books. But in this book, Becoming a Person of Influence, he breaks down the word influence and actually has a leadership lesson for each letter. So we're going to just talk about the second N in influence, which means navigate, or to be a navigator. A bit of an issue there. So a person of influence is a navigator, either for yourself, if you're working on a plan, or for others, if you're perhaps a leader or a mentor, or even a parent, a tutor, where you have to lead other people to that goal, to that end in mind. So a person of influence, or a navigator, you're going to identify the destination and keep that end in mind. So you've already got that on your piece of paper or your computer and written down. I'm going to walk you through the framework and ask you a few questions. So I'll just get you to write down your answers as I'm walking you through this framework. So a navigator plots the course. What do you need to know? What do you need to, in general, what do you need to grow in order to get to your goal? So I'll ask you some questions and I'll just get you to write down, keeping your end in mind. Do you need to learn a new skill set or upgrade your current skill set? Do you need further education and training? Do you need financial planning or budgeting? Do you need to align yourself with the right people? Do you need to build a new and different relationship group or circle? Do you need to network more? Do you need more resources for reading or learning? And that might mean books, magazines, subscriptions. Do you need organization tools? Do you need calendar reminders? Do you need a planner or a day timer? Perhaps you're more on the technology side and you prefer using apps. Maybe you like Excel as an organization tool. These are all things that you may need to think about in order to achieve your end and that end goal. And if there's something else that comes to mind, just write that down as well. So once you sort of walk through what you need to know, what it is that you need to grow in order to reach this end in mind, a navigator also thinks about potential challenges, problems, difficulties. We all know, unfortunately, that there are bumps in the road. How we handle them and how we solution them is also just as important. So for the sake of time, with this one goal that you've written down, I'd like you to just think about one problem or challenge that you might face. There might be multiple ones, but just for the sake of time, we'll focus on one. So what one potential challenge might you face while you're working towards this goal? And thinking broadly, just a couple of examples, if you are stuck for a moment, it could be anything to do with time, might be a challenge for you, given that we are on lockdown in a lot of countries around the world. Space, because you're inside more. Access to resources, could be habits and discipline, cost and finances. So just write down one challenge that you think you might be facing. And then obviously with challenges and problems, we need to figure out solutions. So as a navigator, you need to change the course or change the direction and find solutions. So again, for the sake of time, with this one problem that you've identified, let's think of two solutions that may work in order to solve this problem. Once you've written down the two solutions, just go through a few pros and cons of these two solutions. What are the benefits of acting upon this solution or implementing this solution? Always keeping your end in mind. Will this solution help you continue on the right track to get to where you're going? So again, this framework is something that you can use over and over and over again, Practice definitely helps in repetition. And again, as I mentioned, for the sake of time, we're just going to sort of narrow it down to one challenge and a couple of solutions. But you can definitely work through this with your team on a professional side, with a counselor, with a lawyer, anybody that you might be working with to assist you to get to that goal. So that's sort of a loose framework. So what we're going to do now is we're going to repeat this process, but we're going to do it this time based on a personal goal. So what I'd like you to do is, on a separate paper or wherever you feel comfortable, is write down a personal goal or outcome that you are working towards. And these are just a couple of examples. There could be something that is very personal to you that you want to write down. So go ahead and do that and take a moment to think about that. At the beginning of the year, a lot of people are focused on health goals, fitness goals. That could be something for you. It could be family oriented, anything at all. So just take a moment and write that down, personal. So keep that goal in mind. That is the end target that you're working towards. And now I'd like you to close your eyes and visualize, what does that look like to you when you achieve that goal? Does it mean that you are in a healthier frame of mind? Does it mean that you've learned a new skill? Does it mean that your family is now bonded closer together? Does it mean that you've relocated to a different place, city, country that is calmer, more opportunities? What does that mean for you? Let's just take a moment to visualize that. And then I'd like you to, with your eyes closed still, think about what positive emotions are associated to achieving that goal, to making that change, to seeing that improvement. What does that feel like to you? So now open your eyes, and on your piece of paper or wherever you're making notes, just write down all of these things that came into your mind when you had your eyes closed. Write down those emotions, write down that picture and that visual image that you had of success. I hope that there are a lot of positive emotions and smiles on your faces out there. I can't see it myself, but I hope when you feel and see these successful moments in your mind that you're visualizing, that there are some smiles on your faces as you're writing this down and going through this exercise. So now that we've written down our positive emotions, our visualization and picture an image of what this end goal looks like, I'm just going to walk you through that framework again. So how are you going to walk yourself through this, or potentially if you are doing this and helping somebody else as a leader? So you identified the destination and the end in mind. You've got that written down, your personal goal that we talked about. I'm going to ask you questions again to walk through the process of plotting the course. So what do you need? What do you need to know? What do you need to grow? Again, keeping your end in mind. Do you need to learn a new skill set or upgrade the current skill set? Do you need further education and training? Do you need financial planning and budgeting? Do you need to align yourself with the right people? Do you need to do more networking and build relationships with either new people, different people? Do you need more resources? That could be books, magazines, subscriptions, newspapers, if you're a paper person. Do you need organization tools? Calendar reminders, a day timer, planner, diary, Excel, apps on your phone or on your tablet or laptop. What else? Your goal is specific to you in this particular exercise. So is there something else that, that you need to know in order to help you grow and get to this point? You can just write that down as well. So again, as a leader, as an influencer, as a navigator, you need to think ahead. So what are potential challenges and difficulties or problems that you may face en route to achieving this goal? So again, for the sake of time, we're just going to focus on one potential problem or challenge that you might face. There might be a lot of them, but we'll just take one at this moment. And again, thinking outside the box, potential challenges in this day and age could be technology, access to technology, access to resources. It could be the space and the environment in which you're in. Time, cost, could be habits and discipline. So just write down one challenge that you feel might get in the way. And then you want to make a correction or find solutions to that. So again, for the sake of time, when you brainstorm or you go through this exercise offline afterwards, you could come up with a lot of different solutions, whether they're realistic or unrealistic. It's always great to just brainstorm solutions and then work backwards to figure out which one is actually applicable or not. So for this exercise, come up with 2 solutions to this one problem that we just talked about. And perhaps just brainstorm pros and cons of these 2 solutions. So what are the benefits of these solutions? What's the downfall of these solutions? And then choose one of these solutions which you think would be the most appropriate that you would want to implement in order to solve that problem that we just talked about. Keeping in mind that this solution should keep you on the right track or bring you back on track to that end in mind, because that's always what you're working towards. Remember how that felt, remember what that looked like in order to achieve that goal and visualize it. So this framework here is something that can be applied to performance management. If you're in leadership, it could be team building. It could be focusing on sales goals. It could be focusing on strategy planning. It could be focusing on personal goals, family goals, even something as simple as reading more. If that is a goal of yours for 2021, it could be something to do with having an end in mind, anything at all, and always working backwards to build the plan and plot that course. Planning is an essential key part of leadership, of being a person of influence, whether it's a parent trying to influence their children, whether it's a mentor influencing their mentee, a leader influencing their staff, or a salesperson influencing their customer. There's always room for this framework to be broken down and worked through. I highly encourage spending a lot of time in the thinking ahead and the course correction. That's often where we get stuck. That's often where our emotions are heightened because there are challenges and problems and difficulties. But when you brainstorm them out, whether it's a whiteboard or a Word document or whatever process and method you feel comfortable using, I highly recommend to really put down all of those problems on paper and all of those solutions on paper and work through them in a logical fashion. And that way it takes the emotion out of it all. And then you can correct the problem logically and move forward. So what I'd like you to do now is just take a few moments and with this framework, just write down where you feel you could use this framework. So perhaps for you, it is personal goals. Perhaps you're a leader and you want to use this for your staff or performance management. Just write down a few key areas of where you feel that you could actually use this framework. Keeping in mind that the more you use the framework, the better you'll be at it, the more experienced you'll be able to help others, and you'll be able to navigate for other people, which will make you an influencer. So once you've gone through that and listed some or identified some places in which you could use this framework, what I would love to hear is your feedback at some point in time. So I'll give you a bit of a January challenge, even though we have a couple of weeks left. I'd love to hear where you've used this concept, where you've used this framework. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or email or Instagram. And I'd really love to hear how this framework might have helped you to look at a problem or a goal differently than you did perhaps before. Professional or personal, you don't even need to share the goal with me, but I'd love to just hear your feedback about working through the framework and the plan. And again, always keeping the end in mind. If you haven't, if you are a reader and you haven't read either this John Maxwell book or Stephen Covey, I do recommend those when it comes to goal setting, when it comes to building a plan and visualizing. So I hope that helped a little bit. Those are some tricks, again, as I mentioned, that I use throughout my career. Once I learned them, I really stuck to them. I always kept the end focus in mind. I'm a visual person, so I always had my goal written out, and then I worked backwards to build my plan. And thank you very much, Shelley. I'll hand it back over to you.
Perfect. That was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of that knowledge with us.
You're welcome.
So right now we're actually going to open it up for any questions. So please feel free to type your questions and into the Q&A tab, and we'll go ahead and answer all of those questions that pop up. So we'll just give it a minute for the questions to come in. Okay, so we're seeing some questions in again. So just the first one, an easy one. Can you kindly post the title of the books you advise to read? So if you just want to mention those 2 books again, and then we can type it in the chat so that everybody has a chance to go in and look at those books.
For sure. So I'll see if I can even get down here again. Oh, there we go. So one of them here is, if you can see the screen, Becoming a Person of Influence by John Maxwell. And the second one is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and Stephen with a PH. C-O-V-E.
Perfect. And I just typed them in the chat if anyone wants to just keep the notes there.
Okay.
Great. So another question we have here is, do you have any advice on improving communication skills?
Yes. That would be a very long-winded answer. So happy to chat offline, but a couple of basics in terms of improving communication would be understanding where the other person is coming from. So asking questions. Try to understand the other person's perspective. What are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to learn? So being curious and being inquisitive helps to understand where that person is coming from. So you're listening before speaking or reacting. That's sort of in a nutshell where I would start with that, but happy to chat further because communication is a very broad topic and based on the situation that you might be in and the people that might be in that situation.
Perfect. That's a really concise answer to start. Do you want to go back to the slide with your contact information, and then people can
Absolutely.
make sure they note down your information so they can carry on the conversation? So Jawahar wants to thank you for all the insights, and they have a question here. How do you deal with family members and incorporate them into your self goal to support your purpose, right?
Yeah. So again, these are very broad questions, and happy to chat offline about it. I will say, first of all, I'm not, a family therapist or anything of that sort. So this comes from a leadership perspective, not a behavioral perspective. But one thing I would do that I find very helpful is to actually write down those goals and assess the benefits of either the goal as a family goal or the person itself. So whether it's your goal. So what are the benefits and advantages of reaching and attaining this goal? Is it going to be a better lifestyle? Is it going to be a healthier lifestyle? Is it going to be relocating into a safe neighborhood with better schools? So depending on what that goal is, I would recommend to go through the pros and cons of achieving that goal and getting the buy-in of your people, of your family, and getting them to also have their input of what those benefits are, so that you're all sort of seeing the same vision, if that makes sense. Again, it's a very broad subject, but that's sort of where I would start with it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Hopefully that answers the first part of the question again. Vinny is available to continue the conversation if need be, if you have a more specific question. So we have another one here. Wondering about you personally, and how have you used the framework yourself?
So the framework I've used myself as a leader. So I worked in the travel industry for over 20 years and started when I was really young with not a lot of leadership background training. And so I made sure that I invested in myself with continuing education and courses and certifications. And that's all listed on my LinkedIn profile. So you're very welcome to take a look at that. As an operations leader for Eastern Canada, I was responsible to build up those markets in Ottawa, Montreal, and Halifax that were really starting out markets and taking them to the next level. And that meant using this framework for getting new clients on board, problem solving client issues, staff performance management, hiring staff. It could have been for skill set training and making sure that the team members that I was responsible for had upgraded skill sets. So I used beginning with the end in mind as what did I want to achieve in 1 year? So I always had a 1 year goal because it was a business and you have financial calendars. So I worked with that. And based on that number and those goals, again, not everything was numbers based. It was also feeling good about your work, having pride in your work, having a clean and tidy office, people having great work environments and that kind of a thing as well. So I listed all of that. That was my end in mind that I wanted to achieve. And then I built my plan around it. So having that sort of triangle focus. What did I see for this business? What did I see for the staff and for the people, for the morale, all of those different areas. And then I built my plan around that. I hope that answers your question a little bit more. Again, if you wanted to speak offline, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think having the ability to have that end in mind right at the start really helps you kind of create that visualization, create that plan that you want, and really motivates you to reaching that goal, right? So that's a really great starting point. Thank you for having that. So just a quick question here. I'm wondering if you have any other book recommendations in addition to the ones that you've shared.
Yes, I have a lot of book recommendations. I am an avid reader, and it could be personal or professional. So one book that I always come back to, it's been on my shelf for years, is called The 4 Agreements. And the concepts of the 4 agreements can be used personally and professionally. And it's one that you have on your shelf for your entire life, because every time you come back to a certain situation or you're faced with a certain situation, you flip to those pages or specific sections, and it really resonates or helps you solve that problem and keep it in perspective. So the 4 agreements I come back to all the time. I believe the author is Miguel Ruiz, Ruiz. Yep. The other one that I read last year I like to be very organized. I write things out. I love whiteboards, all that kind of stuff. So this past year, I read Atomic Habits by James Clear, Clear. And this is great for anyone who does have great habits and discipline, and maybe you want to even take it to the next level. But it's also great for those who aren't good with habits and discipline. Even maintaining habits, you might be good for a couple of months and then you fall off. It's a great one to bring back. And he's also got newsletter subscriptions, which I believe are free. So if you signed up to his, went on his website and subscribed to his newsletters, you get a lot of insight there as well. There are a lot of free newsletters and subscriptions that you can get. So I definitely recommend, looking into that with different authors. So those are just two. Again, I have tons. You can kind of see my bookshelf on the side there.
Nice.
One of four. I have 4 bookshelves. I love to read.
That's amazing. So if anybody else has a New Year's resolution to read more books, there's some 4 books you can get started with this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So another question we have here is focusing on that framework again. So wondering how they can navigate the part of the visualization of future challenges when you're setting goals. So they're finding it a bit difficult to envision the future challenge when you're just kind of at the goal setting stage. Do you have an example you can share, or any advice on how to go about that?
Yeah, so if I understand the question correctly, it's a challenge with the actual visualization part of the process. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think with coming up with those challenges when you're just goal setting.
Yeah. So with visualization, if you're not used to doing that exercise and you want to use it more in your planning or your goal setting, I would recommend to focus first on the emotions. So how do you feel
Mhm.
when you close your eyes and you see this end goal in mind? And I'll just use health and fitness as an example, because that's one that always, people come back to quite often, and it's the beginning of the year and that kind of a thing. When you're visualizing a healthier lifestyle, how does that make you feel when you close your eyes and you see yourself either in new clothing, you're more fit, you're more healthy, perhaps your skin is glowing, perhaps your hair is just healthy, perhaps people are complimenting you and people are noticing your improvement. How does that make you feel? So I would always focus on the feelings and your emotions first, the positive emotions that you associate with reaching the goal. Once you focus on the emotions, then you can flip it to the practical side of it. And what does that look like? And, does it mean you're walking more? Does it mean you're riding a bike, swimming more? Maybe you're the expert at some kind of fitness trend now and somebody else isn't. And now you're the mentor taking them through that process. What does that look like for you? So I would start with the emotions when it comes to visualization, then do the practical side of it. I hope, again, that answers your question. I know it's in a webinar, we're sort of one way here. So if you need more information or some more guidance, then again, just reach out.
Perfect. Yeah, and you can still always type more questions into the chat as well. We still have some time to answer these questions. Okay, so another question we have here is again another broad question. So hopefully you can do your best to find an answer that's short and sweet. So what are some ways of developing effective leadership skills? And you can probably do another presentation on this, right?
Yes. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so what are some ways of developing effective leadership skills?
Okay. So again, very broad question. I'm going to go back here. Leadership skills are are improved over time and are improved based on application in a situation. So it could be great to read books and take courses, etc., which I do recommend to always improve skill set and know more. But if those are not applied, or you don't have a situation in which you can use them, they won't be approved upon. So I would recommend to challenge yourself if you are looking to get into leadership, or you are just looking to even be better communicators, or even as a parent, is challenge yourself to use the skill set once you've learned it. So that may mean putting yourself in a bit more of a challenging situation. It may mean that you're volunteering to be on a project that perhaps, you maybe didn't get assigned on. It could be being a mentee and job shadowing somebody else as well. That's sort of one side of developing the leadership skills. Obviously, taking courses and getting certified in whichever domain you might be in, reading obviously as well, but it's the practice and the application of it. I definitely was never an instant amazing leader overnight. There are skill sets that I knew that I had, and I've always sort of been in leadership, even from childhood, from school and that kind of a thing. But getting better at it was something that I had to push myself through in each situation to actually apply those skills. I hope that makes sense in terms of developing leadership skills.
I
Great
think that,
questions. These are all
yeah.
great questions.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. So just having that starting point, maybe going out doing some volunteering, being mentored, or maybe even taking the plunge and trying to be a mentor if there's a particular, area that you are an expert at, and sharing that knowledge, that all helps to build those effective leadership skills. So that's really great examples and some tangible things that people can get started with, and maybe even in your personal life, right? Like as a family leader, or with your friends, if you're the one that's planning or organizing things. There are lots of ways to put those leadership skills into practice once you learn them. So really
Exactly,
great
yeah.
advice. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, so another question here is uh, I will read the book by John Maxwell, so hopefully there are a lot more readers of the John Maxwell books. But they'd like to know how to become more influential. So again, a bit of a broad question. So yeah, let's see how maybe we can tackle this one.
So yeah, definitely a broad question. I'd say that there are a few different categories when it comes to becoming more influential, again, whether that's with personal or professional. Communication, or developing effective communication skills, I think is sort of a subcategory of becoming a more influential person. Asking good questions and trying to understand what's happening on the other side, or what this other person is thinking or feeling. So being more inquisitive and being more curious as well. Curious, I'm just writing this down because I don't want to miss anything. I'd also say composure and patience is probably another subcategory of becoming more influential. So again, whether you're a leader in a corporate environment, or whether you're a parent or a caregiver to a senior, perhaps, being more patient and having composure is also important, because challenges will always be there, and that's the fact. So when you get to those challenges, or to those problems and those difficulties, having patience and composure is going to help you command the situation, rather than being irate or upset or emotional. That won't influence the situation in a positive direction. So I'll leave it at those three because again, there are so many other things involved in that question. I hope that helps a little bit. So curiosity, communication, and patience.
Perfect. Those are great three tidbits to kind of just have in your head, a little mantra for you as you try to do your best in that area. Okay, so another question here is about self-confidence.
Mm.
So do you have any advice on gaining self-confidence as individuals take on new challenges and leadership roles?
Hmm. So one of the things with self-confidence that I would recommend, and I'll even give this to you as another challenge this year, and you'll see this on my Instagram as well. It's called the Progress Jar. And what that is every time you have a small win, you have an accomplishment, you have something that has gone right, so to speak. You've had a positive conversation, you've made new friends, you've made new LinkedIn connections, you've attended the seminar, all of those things which are positive and which are fulfilling. What you do is you write that down on a sheet of paper and you put it in a jar, and that's called a progress jar. And you can either do it every month or you can do it every couple of months. Definitely do it at the end of the year, and you take out all of these amazing accomplishments and amazing wins that you've had. And you will automatically feel amazing. You will build your self-confidence. You will realize that you have made so much progress in these small little steps and small little wins instead of having these giant wins. Focus on small wins and celebrate the small wins. So that's sort of one way of improving confidence. I did also post this on my LinkedIn page on Be a Leader. So you can go to either that or Instagram and you can take a look at, it's a little video on the progress jar. And that's just one way I would say that you can start building confidence. Again, there are so many different factors involved in this. That could be a whole different workshop and a webinar in itself. Actually, all of these topics and Q&As that you've had are really great questions. So I do thank you for that because they're great, great perspectives that you're coming with. So I hope that answers your question a little bit about self-confidence.
Yeah, so we have some comments that celebrating small wins, that they love the idea of that. And I'm going to have to go clean out a pickle jar later and get started on this myself.
Yeah, no, it's great. And with the progress jar, if jars are not your thing, you can use a shoebox or a really pretty box. Some people are into arts and crafts. If that's not your thing and you're a computer apps-based person, you can just use a spreadsheet on Excel. You can use a whiteboard or a big giant Post-it note. You can use individual Post-it notes. This also ties back, I'm not sure if that person is still on the webinar, but getting your family involved in your goals or getting them focused. This is also something that's great for the family to do either individually or as a family together. And on the last week of the year, before you count down to New Year's, you can go through this jar and you can see how many amazing things were accomplished this year. And again, 2020 and 2021 are emotional years with the quarantining and COVID. So this might be a way to keep it on track and realize that we're making progress and we are moving forward, either as a family or individually. So definitely check out the Progress Jar video, either on my Instagram or on the LinkedIn Be a Leader site.
Okay, perfect. So Bright has a question here, again, on the topic of self-confidence.
Okay.
How could someone overcome fear in order to gain confidence in public speaking?
Oh, so one of the biggest ways to overcome fear with public speaking is to actually take the plunge and public speak more.
Mhm.
So I know it sounds scary. But again, start with small things. So maybe that just means that you're doing it in front of the mirror. Maybe that means you are talking to, a pretend Zoom meeting. Maybe that means you are talking to your dog or your pet. Maybe that means you are singing a song, karaoke style with a wooden spoon and a spatula. Um, Start small. Start within the home. Start within your comfort zone. Sing your favorite song. Speak in the mirror. Sing the song in the mirror. Be comfortable with the starting point, so with yourself or with the content. And then the second point I will make is on the content. So if you're going to public speak, or even just with a family gathering or anything like that, or even within your friends, start with subjects that are close to your heart and your mind, that you're passionate about, because that will come across in your body language and in your tone. And when that comes across, your audience, even if it's a pretend audience, the audience will give you that feedback, and you will actually thrive off of that energy and be able to deliver more passionately. But it's practice,
Mhm.
practice, practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. And don't be afraid if you do make mistakes or errors or have technology glitches, like, in webinars and things like that. These things are bound to happen. I think we've gotten to that point in society where we are forgiving with technology, and we are forgiving with errors and things like that, or stumbling upon words, or me looking down from my paper, things like that.
Mhm.
So start with subjects that are close to your heart. Start small, in your living room, in the bathroom, or wherever that may be. That's where I would go with it, but you do need to take the plunge eventually. And don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's really perfect. Yeah, public speaking is really a skill in itself, and it requires lots and lots of practice. So, yeah, hopefully you can start small, and maybe it's just singing in the shower and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I think we have time for just one last question. So Moen's wondering, how can we manage leading and motivating teams, doing team building events, and having personal connections during work from home, lockdown, and social distancing? So it looks like this person um, wants to be able to do more team building events and activities, but is
Mhm.
while we're stuck in lockdown is having trouble managing that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
hmm Okay, so I could totally have a separate conversation on this for sure. This question is very common. I'd probably say in the last 6 months, when people realized that we weren't really going anywhere, or back to the office. So again, I'm happy to have a conversation with you offline to talk specifically about what your team and the environment and that kind of a thing looks like. But in general, with team building events or leadership, um, there are some creative ideas where you can incorporate. Again, I don't know where you're located or how this is all coming, so I can chat with you more if you want afterwards. But there are restaurants and local small businesses that are willing to partner with some companies, um, in terms of delivering a pizza kit or a cooking kit. And then you can have a team social, if you want to call it that, or a team bonding building event where everyone is on Zoom, or whatever platform you're using, and you're all cooking at the same time. Some people have been incorporating families into this, obviously, because you're at home, you need to make dinner anyways. So let's have a family event. There are a few creative ways that I've either seen out there, or that I have, sort of planned out myself. So if you did want to chat further, I'm happy to do that as well. Again, not knowing sort of where you're located or where your team is and that kind of a thing. So,
Okay,
um,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for any of this stuff, sorry, as you did mention, Shelley, I'll just leave that back up again, which is my contact details there.
Yeah, so please go ahead and follow Bhavini on all of the social media. If you want to reach out, if you had any questions that pop up later, or you want more advice on maybe how to use the framework that we talked about today in more detail, she's ready and open to having a conversation with you. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today. It was really wonderful. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with our audience?
I just wanted to say thank you for the questions. They were really great. And the one-way webinar, again, is definitely a different concept because I can't see all of you. And I can't see if you're cringing or if you're smiling and if you're excited, but I really do appreciate the questions. They're really great. And my contact details, as I mentioned, are on the screen. LinkedIn is a great way to connect with myself and obviously building a bigger network. And if you wanted to set up any coaching sessions or wanted some development and training, I'm happy to chat with you offline and see if that is something that you wanted to take further. And as I mentioned earlier on, I'm a BaliX instructor as well, which is a Bollywood workout. So if anyone is looking for health and fitness or something different to do, you can reach out to me and I can send you those details as well. That's it. Thank you, ACCES and Shelley, for having me. I appreciate it.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for all of the practical advice today. Hopefully people can take that away and build in some new goals for this year. So we're just going to end it there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.